So something just happened last night that many are calling a danger to America. I'm going to address what this is and how this is going to impact us moving forward. One thing I can tell you, this has to do with the U.S. southern border, the security in the United States, and what one individual had to do with all of this. So again, I'm going to break that down in just a moment. All I ask is one thing. It takes 2 seconds. Go ahead, hit that like button if you enjoy these daily updates. And now, let's begin. So what happened last night is going to go down in history. And here's the reason why. Secretary Mayorcas, he becomes the first cabinet secretary impeached since 1876. This is the first cabinet secretary impeached in over 100 years. This is going to go down in history. But what happens now? This is the real concern. This is why many people are wondering what is going to go on. What does this mean for the United States? What does this mean for other countries? What does this mean to the American people and the U.S. border and our security? Well, let's go ahead and read this article, or some of it. It says the House on Tuesday voted 214 to 213 to impeach Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas over his handling of an influx of migrants across the U.S.-Mexico border. What we know is that Alejandro Mayorkas, he has been involved in some of the highest numbers we have ever seen in the United States. We're just in December alone, over 300,000 people entered the United States illegally. We are shattering records this past year, and those are not good records to be shattered. Let's keep reading this. Why does it matter? It's the first time since War Secretary William Belknap in 1876 that a cabinet secretary has been impeached, though Mayorkas is all but certain to be acquitted by the Senate. Now, I will address what's going on there in just a moment because, again, it has to go through the House and the Senate. In the House of Representatives, I just showed you, they impeached him with a vote count of 214 to 213. They've impeached him with one additional vote. In the Senate, you need 2/3 majority. Okay? So you need at least 60 votes in order to get this passed. Well, that's a problem because Republicans only have 49 senators. Democrats have 51. So even if it splits along party lines, Republicans cannot get this passed because they do not have 60 total votes. This is why some Democrats say this was simply a political game from the GOP because they know that there's no way the Senate is going to impeach a cabinet member. All right? So let's keep reading this. It says, driving the news. The House impeached Mayorkas on 2 counts, willful and systematic refusal to comply with the law and breach of public trust. Now, I want to go over the details really quick. It says the 22-page articles of impeachment accused Mayorkas of failing to comply federal law and court rulings around migrant detention and blames him for a surge in border crossings during the Biden administration. Just to give you an idea, there's been so many people illegally entering into the United States. Even if we were to apprehend and detain them, the problem is we do not have enough space to detain 10,000 people a day. We just don't. So eventually, if we bring in new people, the old people have to go somewhere. And we're not sending them back down to Mexico. We're releasing them into the United States simply because of space and resources. That's crazy. Now, I want to play this clip for you. This is from Speaker Mike Johnson, okay? I want to play this for you. It's not going to be too long, but we'll split it up. We'll talk about it and explain what exactly he's saying. But let's listen to this.
And I, my background's in constitutional law, and I've served on the impeachment defense team for President Trump twice. I'm very familiar with the law. I'm very familiar with the legal standard. And we had some very thoughtful intellectual discussion with those 2 gentlemen this morning. Listen, I respect everybody's view on it. I understand the heavy weight that impeachment is, as I've said many times, and y'all have heard me say, next to the declaration of war, I believe impeachment is probably the heaviest authority that the House is given in the Constitution.
Now, the one reason I want to stop this really quick is because the reason why he's bringing this up is because there were a couple Republicans that voted with Democrats on this to not impeach Secretary Mayorkas. Those are Representatives Ken Buck, a Republican out of Colorado, Tom McClintock, he's a Republican out of California, and Mike Gallagher, a Republican out of Wisconsin. Those three voted with Democrats, not Republicans. Now, the reasons why really don't matter at this point, but just understand that a lot of what people are going to vote for is going to be politically motivated, especially this year. So let's keep listening.
We carry that weight very carefully. What I will say about this on the Mayorcas impeachment is that the Homeland Security Committee did an extraordinary job, a very deliberate job, as you know, over a long period of time in 5 different phases, investigating the various things that Secretary Mayorkas has been charged with. And ultimately, when you talk about the breach of public trust, when you talk about a secretary who has openly lied before the Congress, right? He stood in front of us, and me personally, after taking an oath, and said things that he knows are not true. When he has engaged in a complete dereliction of duty, and moreover, he has willfully defied existing federal statutes and laws and things that are incumbent upon him, his duty under the laws of the country. He refuses to enforce. There is no other measure for Congress to take but this one. It's an extreme measure. We do not take it lightly, and I respect the conscience of everyone and how they vote. But I would tell you, I am convinced that this individual, I'm not the greatest historian and scholar, but I am a student of history. And I'll tell you, in my review and my understanding and everything I've known and read and studied over the years, I don't believe there's ever been a cabinet secretary who was so blatantly, openly, willfully, and without remorse did exactly the opposite of what the federal law requires him to do. It's an extreme measure, but extreme times call for extreme measures.
Now, we're going to stop there. So he came out and says that he's never, based off of his knowledge, that he's never seen a cabinet secretary that was so blatantly open and pretty much willfully goes against everything that the federal law statutes say. Now, one thing I can tell you is that, the hard part is, a lot of these people are put into these positions. For some do a great job, some don't do a great job. But here's the thing: in order for him to actually be impeached, he has to go through a trial. So that's actually what happens next. Okay. So as far as what happens next, because the House changed their mind, and in the second vote, they actually impeached Secretary Mayorkas. Well, what happens next is the Senate is going to put together a trial. He's going to stand trial for this, just like former President Donald Trump did. So he's going to stand trial for this. And the hard part is, even though it's looking like he's being impeached, the Senate has to approve this. They have to pretty much agree to this, which means there's a 2/3 majority. 60 senators have to agree that yes, he violated laws. He didn't do what the American people need him to do. He didn't really handle his role properly. If that happens, the Senate will impeach him. If they do that, then it goes to President Biden, and President Biden could veto this impeachment. So as of right now, based off of everything we're seeing, it simply looks like Republicans are playing this game. Now, I don't want to come out and say that this Secretary Mayorkas did a good job. Did he? Absolutely not. He did a horrible job. But at the same time, was he doing what President Biden and the Biden administration were directing him to do? Well, that's what's now up for debate. That is something that we're going to find out, because once he goes in front of the Senate can ask him pretty much anything. So we're going to find out, hopefully, some of the truth. But here's the problem. According to many, they say putting Secretary Mayorkas back into his position is a danger to America. But at the same time, if we remove the cabinet secretary, does that also put the American people in danger? Some say yes, but all I can tell you right now is this is just the beginning. We're going to find out what happens next, but just understand, impeaching a cabinet secretary, especially one of this magnitude at this time, this could be history in the making. So We'll see what happens moving forward. All I can tell you is I'll be here every step of the way. I'll fill you in on all the latest news and updates. But as of today, that is what we know. So again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing. I'll see you guys on the next one.